community talk and whatever you want to share with like the future for Fit for Service and also community out your way.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, with Fit for Service, we kept it at 150 people, Dunbar's number, because we really wanted to form a cohesive tribe. And that was great for the first 3 years. And then we realized like that ceiling doesn't actually exist. We're just making it that way. But there is value in that. So we've opened it up to allow whoever qualifies to be in. And what we're going to do is split the group in half. So that way we have, or as many times as necessary, and take people through summits that are still under 200 people. That way there's you actually do get a chance to make connections and really get close to people when you're at the summits. And then at the end of the year in Sedona, we're going to have the big powwow with everybody who's been a part of it all year long. And of course you'll have made friends throughout that, but then you'll get to see the other half. You get to see who else you haven't been going through the summits with. And I'm really excited for that. I'm absolutely excited for that. When it comes to what's next, it's funny. My future looks a lot like our past. And it's something that's really stuck out to me is that we have to return to harmony with nature. I think that's a given. Regenerative agriculture, permaculture, sustainable living, farming, all these things are things that I want to get into. Aubrey just acquired a 120-acre ranch in Texas that I will be a caretaker for the land with my family. So we're looking into what type of home we want to build, with what materials. My father was a general contractor for 50 years. He still is. So he's going to come out, and we'll have my dad all the way to me and my son all having our hands in that, building our dream home on this property. We're going to have, animals and orchard. It's going to look like the biggest little farm. And, there will be a church for medicinal use of plants as well. So really bridging that gap, not just for me, but for the community at large, and having a home where we can legally give the one thing that we haven't been able to give people in Fit for Service. And all the while still giving them everything we're giving them, the kitchen sink of our wisdom, at that time. So I've got a lot on my plate. It feels like I need to get a bachelor's degree in a lot of different things right now. And, the thing that's holding that together is just the thread of trust that I know I'm always provided for. And, our interconnectivity, the fact that we are one, one with the planet, one with each other. I know that the experts that I need, I'm already connected with. And it's such a beautiful thing to take a deep breath and just relax into, and know that, yes, there's a big hill to climb right now in getting this to look the way that I want it to. But at the same time, those connections are already made.
Man, what an example. I love this. And one thing that this holds a very special place in my heart, because, I literally for the past 2 months, I've had guests staying at my house. And it kind of popped in like out of the flow for me, but that's just how life goes. Like, you never know when, I think it was this Heath Ledger film called Four Feathers. I don't know if you guys saw that one. Okay, well, incredible film, but, long story short, Heath Ledger found himself from Britain all the way, in Africa somewhere to find his friends who went to war, and he didn't. But he decided he was going to go there and help his friends anyway, and he gets kind of like just kind of trashed by the desert and circumstances and left for dead. And this one lone tribesman sees him. And, it's funny because the whole dynamic is he's annoyed by it, but he and Heath can tell, but he's like, well, why'd you save me? Why'd you save my life? And he said, because God put you in my way. And he just laughed about it. And I find that so funny because we have all these expectations of where life should throw us most of the time, and what it should feel like as life develops. And those unexpected surprises that knock us off our game are the opportunities that give us the chance to, in that moment, be who we know we could be, but we haven't had the opportunity to grow that way yet. So with that being said, the reason why these people are in my house is because we're talking about the next step. It's community. It's the same thing. Like, what the future looks like is what the past always was. What held it together for so long wasn't science. And, it was, I should actually take that back. It's not the modern rendition of science. It's what science always was, which was human-centered rather than externalized in data somewhere on a database that's centralized and only a couple people can verify whether it's true or not. It's actually real science is that thing that's earned over time, real wisdom pooled together in society. But then there has to be what you called is harmony with nature. And that also means that we are part of nature. We need to learn what harmony is with human beings without the filtration through social media or 140 characters, whatever it is, really returning to having real life experiences again, which is why I love what I'm hearing about Fit for Service, but especially about that 120 acre ranch. And I'm hearing about this all over, not just the country, but the world. People are returning to this concept of community. So my wife, who has the big vision, Barb, and we'll have her on the podcast here soon. It's about time. She has been spearheading. We just were out in Austin, met up with you guys, went and stayed at a Hobbit house. One of the friends of the owner of the Hobbit house is somebody who actually lived not just in cults, but in communities. And she says, of course, I learned the bad parts of what a cult is. And I also learned what's actually beautiful about some of these groupings of people. Not all of it is the bad. A lot of it is the good of harmony of relationship, learning how to come together. So she has her fingers on the dial of how to identify what Jamie Wheel would call grabbing the ring of power and taking a good idea too far. And so her name is Olivia. She connected with you as well as connected with my wife and putting on a summit in Austin about community. So you'll be speaking at it. I'll be speaking at it, probably doing some kind of community style exercises, stomping, clapping, creating music in the moment. But beyond all that, I think what I'm hearing from what you and Ob are spearheading out there, and also what I'm hearing here in Tennessee and a lot of other places are people are really looking to get back to what has life always been? How can we return to us not outsourcing all this, but taking the bull by the horns and creating the future that we wish to create, like really being the solution that we wish to see in the world. So what I love about that is I would love to talk now a little bit about what your vision is, the blueprint that you feel it can change from location to location, but probably some of the best practices of community. What are you looking forward to as you are the caretaker of the land? And that land also has to be cared for by other people who are there. So what are your boundaries, your parameters for community that you're looking for? And what kind of blueprint are you looking to set forward?
Yeah, that is a loaded meatball of a question, brother.
Piece by piece, man.
Grass finished meatball. I have a lot to learn. There's no doubt about it. I think the first things that are on my mind really have been architecture. What are we going to build? And I just had a meeting with Monsell, who has been on my podcast. He does sacred hunting and is a beautiful human. He knows a lot about regenerative agriculture. I'm wearing my buddy's T-shirt over at Rome Ranch. They're out in Fredericksburg, and they've got a giant buffalo herd out there on 1,500 acres. So, like I said, I am already connected in many ways, not just spiritually, but literally connected to some of the experts that I need. We're going to have a herd of black buck. We're going to have some domesticated animals, and really my job will be to restore the soil to its original capacity. And I've had these guys on the podcast before, so this is something that I'll be working with them directly on. And building that Garden of Eden, really getting the orchard right, getting the plants right, getting the greenhouses right, so we can be fully sustained with ourselves. Rainwater collection, solar power, batteries, the whole deal, and living off grid. Speaking directly to the community side, there are a couple parameters that first and foremost, and the experts that I've spoken to about community, you have to have a working myth. Paul Chek did an excellent podcast. Maybe you guys can link to in the show notes on tribe. I think it's 3 hours long. It was a solo cast, and we have to have a shared myth. It doesn't mean we all have to have the shared religion or that we all have to have, the exact same beliefs and things, but we have to have a shared myth about what it is we are creating together. And then we have to have some fail safes put in. We have to have a process for working things out intelligently with emotional intelligence when things go wrong. Because anytime you're in community, you're going to have that. You're going to have hiccups. You're going to have problems within relationship. I was talking with Dr. Will Tagle. He's out in Wimberley, Texas, not far from me. He wrote the book Walking with Bears, one of my all-time favorite books. A true elder in every sense of the word. He's 80 and he's a Native American elder as well. So he's really an elder. One of the things he talked about, he's buddies with the guys at Dominer, and I think they have a documentary available now on Netflix for people to check out, but they have one of the longest standing and largest communities with over 1,000 people in Northern Italy. And the art that they come up with is psychedelic and absolutely gorgeous. They do their own food, 100% organic and biodynamic. And they said the number one problem, I haven't seen the documentary yet, but according to Will, the number one problem they have is sex. It's relationships. It's all the sticky shit that people rush up against when they're in love. And they're not a sex cult. This isn't like some weird shit where everybody's got to fuck the guru. It's just human nature. When you live in close proximity and you love people and you have a shared vision, that things like that come up. So, I'm a novice when it comes to any of this stuff. And that's why it was funny when Olivia asked me to speak. I was like, I can speak about the things that I know about, but there's a lot that I don't know. I have no problem admitting that. One of the things we want to do is take it piece by piece and build it slowly in every way possible. We get our house on the ranch first, bring in the animals and start to restore the soil and bring in the plants and bring in other people who are experts in those fields that come and don't necessarily live there at first, but start to build that community with the group of like-minded people and see a need, fill a need. If there's a need for certain people to be on the property, they're obviously going to be sought after. So when it comes to certain things, like really understanding your attributes as a person, if this is something you want to be a part of, how do you fit in? What do you bring to the table? And that's different for everybody. It doesn't mean you have to have, the 20 years of regenerative agriculture. It could be anything. It could be that you're great with kids. We're going to be homeschooling, and a lot of, I think anybody else who lives there is going to be homeschooling on that ranch. And I think that's, going to require people who have patience, who know how to play, that didn't forget as adults what it's like to play with a kid, how to think like a kid. All that stuff matters. And if people get really clear on doing the work on themselves, they're going to know they have many gifts to offer. So I think, really understanding that we can take this slowly and build it correctly and do it right, and then still recognize that we're going to rush up against many problems just like all communities do. And to accept that fact and to say yes to it anyways, I think is the move.
Make sure y'all head over to benjosephstewart.com, become a member. You'll have access to the growing library of deeper dives where I talk about all the stuff that I really can't talk about on YouTube. Make sure you get involved in the Discord chat. That's where a lot of the conversation is happening, talking about new theories, being able to interweave into the greater conversation that is how we awaken infinity. That's our highest potential. And I just want to remind you, you are the most powerful technology ever known to creation. Wield it like an artist with a conscience.